A bellwether look at the president's standing in the very first state to hold a 2020 caucus. I'm talking about Iowa. And CNN partnered up with Iowa's Des Moines Register newspaper for some brand new polling. I want to bring in CNN correspondent Ryan Nobles. Ryan, just how strong is President Trump's support among Iowa Republicans?
Well, Anna, to put it bluntly, the president's support is very strong enough where if you're seriously considering a challenge to President Trump as a Republican, it would certainly give you pause. Take a look at these numbers. 67% of Iowa Republicans say they will definitely vote for the president in their caucus. Only 19% say they would even consider another candidate. And the president's overall support within his own party is solid as well. 81% of Iowa Republicans say they approve of the president's job performance. Certainly strong numbers, Anna, and certainly something that's going to perhaps take some of these Republicans that are considering a bid, Bob Corker, Jeff Flake, others, that may have them at least second guessing that thought process right now.
So, Ryan, does that mean Iowans aren't open to the idea of a challenge to President Trump?
Well, that's what's pretty remarkable, Anna, is even though they strongly support President Trump, they are certainly open to the idea that a Republican challenge him, at least in some capacity. In fact, when you take a look at these numbers, 63% say they would be open to the idea of a Republican challenger jumping into the Iowa caucus, and only 26% say that they don't want someone to get in. So even though they like President Trump by and large, if it's something that we know Iowans like, it is a healthy competition. So they're not necessarily in disagreement with the idea that someone challenge President Trump in 2020.
So interesting. Is it President Trump himself, the person, or is it more than that? How do Iowans feel about Trump's policies?
You know, Anna, we talk so much about the power of President Trump's personality. Certainly that is a big factor. But when you break down these numbers, it's clear that Iowans support his policies as well. Let's just tick through some of these more controversial positions that the president has taken and show you where Iowans are. 83% thought that it was a good idea for President Trump to send troops to the U.S. border. How about the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court? Pretty strong numbers there as well. 81% supporting Brett Kavanaugh as a Supreme Court justice. And finally, what about building a wall on the southern border? 74% of Iowa Republicans agree with the president on that point. Anna, these are all policy positions that President Trump has pushed in a very big way. It is resonating with Republicans in Iowa, and it is one of the reasons that you see that he is in such a strong position in this first early caucus state.
Ryan Nobles, thank you for breaking it down. To his supporters, President Trump represents the billionaire businessmen who will bring his gifts for making money to all. So far, an economy that began recovering for years under President Obama has bolstered Trump's case. Jobs are being added every month in the stock market, meaning 401ks have been soaring. But now comes some troubling signs. A number of significant drops in the market, down 1,600 points in just the last 2 weeks alone. Confidence in the economy, if not quite rattled, is certainly a little shaken. Joining us now is Stephen Moore, former Trump economic advisor, and Catherine Rampell, Washington Post opinion columnist. Stephen, you're an economist. How concerned should the president be about the economy and where it's headed as we head toward 2020?
Well, of course, the economy is going to be everything in terms of his reelection. So I'm of the opinion that if the economy continues to be as strong as it's been for the last couple of years by election day, then he's going to win a big reelection. But if the economy goes south, you know, anything could happen and he could be defeated. So it really is the economy, stupid, when it comes to that 2020 election. And, you know, there are some concerns in the economy, no question about it. The stock market has been on a downward spiral now for the last 2 or 3 months. But the real economy, Anna, looks still really strong to me. I mean, construction is really good. Manufacturing is good. Industrial production is good. Consumer confidence and small business confidence are really strong. I talked to the Manufacturing Association this week, many of the leading manufacturers in the country, the CEOs, and they all said business has never been better. The one area of weakness that I see, Anna, is in the housing market. It's still really soft in a lot of areas.
If the president loses the ability to take credit for helping voters get wealthy, Catherine, does he lose his ability to bring Republicans along behind him, especially with the mounting legal questions that he's facing?
I think what's interesting is that his approval ratings are as weak as they are given how strong the economy seems at the moment. So yes, if the economy turns south, and if you look at the most recent Wall Street Journal survey of economists, about half of economists expect a recession by 2020. If it turns south, that will certainly be held against him. Whether or not that's necessarily his fault that the economy turns south is a separate issue. As I always say, presidents do not control economies. They can affect them on the margin, and certainly the trade war is not helping. If you look at that very same survey, the biggest risk to the economy that most economists see is, in fact, the U.S.-China trade war for next year. So he's doing some things that will not help his case. But either way, if the economy crashes, if, in fact, we have a downturn, and we're sort of overdue for one, statistically speaking, then, yeah, that will certainly hurt him come 2020.
To Catherine's point, Stephen, given the president does like to take credit for the good economic times that we're seeing, do you think he's oversold on that his responsibility for the economic boom, which he inherited at least in part? And if so, is he in danger of being held responsible for an economy that has to slow down at some point?
No, it is the Trump economy. There's no question. I would disagree a little bit with Catherine. I think presidential policy has a big impact on the economy. I think Trump deserves a lot of credit for the deregulation policies, and the tax cut has obviously been a huge success in terms of getting up business confidence and business spending. I also agree with Catherine on the trade issue. Look, this is a high-stakes showdown we're having with China. It's about time we have this showdown. If Trump can pull out a victory, as you know, they've got 80 days now to have an agreement for China to come forward with some kind of concessions. If Trump can pull that off, I think it'll be enormously positive for the economy of not just the United States, but for the world. But it's also true if this thing blows up and we get a trade war, that's going to be really negative for the economies of both countries, and that could be a real problem for Trump.
So just to be clear, though, Stephen, because the first question out of your mouth and the first word out of your mouth after my question was that it is Trump's responsibility. He is responsible for such a good economy. Yes. So are you saying he owns it if the economy goes south?
He owns it. That's exactly what I'm saying. So the good news that we've had, I think I never bought this idea that this is the Obama, expansion. This is the Trump boom. But of course, if things go south on him, he's also going to have to blame. But I just don't see it coming.
Okay. I mean, it's funny. It's like you're giving Trump all of the credit and you give Obama all of the blame, but it is substantially the exact same economy. If you look at a trend line for unemployment, it's basically a straight line. If you look at job growth, it's basically the same today as it was under Obama. If you want to talk about business investment, that has dramatically slowed down in the past quarter. So it seems like we had a temporary bump from the tax cuts, but it's not clear that will last. So, it's funny. I feel like you kind of want to have it both ways. You want to blame Obama and give Trump credit and then say, well, maybe if things go awry with trade, then that'll be a problem. But, whatever long-term structural problems the U.S. economy has, those predate Trump, and the policies that he has embraced under his tenure so far do not substantially change the fact that we have serious demographic challenges, for example.
Gotta leave it there, guys. Catherine, Stephen, good to have you both. We'll have you back. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.